All right, so imagine you're, digging around in the attic, maybe going through some old boxes, and you come across a wad of cash,
Yeah.
like a couple $100.
Yeah, like hidden treasure.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a good feeling.
It is a good feeling.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're talking about today on this deep dive. We're talking about stimulus checks from 2021.
You might be thinking, wait a minute, I thought that was over.
Yeah.
But the IRS says over 1.1 million Americans haven't claimed theirs.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I thought that was over a long time ago.
Yeah, a lot of people think that, and that's why we're doing this deep dive to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit on this. And the IRS is actually our main source of information for this.
Okay, so over 1 million people haven't claimed these stimulus checks. How much money are we talking about?
It's a lot. It's over $1 billion.
Wow, $1 billion just sitting there
Yeah.
unclaimed.
Unclaimed. Yeah. And April 15, 2025 is the last chance to claim these funds.
2025, that's coming up.
It's coming up quick.
So I definitely want to make sure that our listeners know about this. And, if they're eligible, they can go and claim it.
Absolutely.
So let's back up a little bit. Can you just remind us about these stimulus checks?
Sure. So those stimulus payments were based on your 2020 tax return. And then the Recovery Rebate Credit was put in place to make sure that even if your situation changed in 2021, you'd still get the full stimulus amount.
Okay, so even if you didn't file a tax return in 2021,
That's right.
you could still be eligible.
Yeah. So if you had a baby or if you lost your job and your income went down in 2021,
You could still get some money.
you could still qualify for the
Yeah.
Recovery Rebate Credit.
Okay, and there were probably a lot of reasons why people haven't claimed this money, right? Maybe they weren't aware,
That's a big one.
or maybe life got in the way.
Sure.
Taxes are confusing.
Taxes are confusing.
So who exactly is eligible for this potential windfall?
Okay, so for single filers, you're eligible for the full $1,400 if your adjusted gross income in 2021 was $75,000 or less.
Okay, so less than 75,000, you automatically qualify.
That's right.
What if you made a little bit more?
There's a phase-out range. So if you made between $75,000 and $80,000, you might still be eligible for a partial payment.
Okay, but once you hit 80,000?
You're out of luck.
Okay, got it. What about people who filed jointly, like married couples?
So for married couples, the income limits double. So they would be eligible for the full $2,800 if their combined AGI was $150,000 or less. And then the phase out starts at $150,000 and ends at $160,000.
Okay, so those are the income limits for individuals and couples.
Yeah.
What about families with dependents?
Yeah, so dependents, no matter their age, could also be eligible for $1,400, each subject to those same income limits that we just talked about.
Okay, wow, this is starting to sound like a pretty serious opportunity for a lot of people.
It is, and it's not just about the stimulus checks. The IRS data shows that the median unclaimed refund amount for non-filers in 2021, excluding the stimulus, was $781.
Whoa, almost $800.
Yeah.
I definitely would not want to leave that unclaimed.
And there's also the earned income tax credit.
The EITC.
Yeah.
I feel like I always hear about that, but it always seems so confusing.
Yeah, well, the EITC is a refundable tax credit that is specifically designed for low to moderate income workers and families.
Okay, so for people who are working,
Yeah.
and depending on how much you make and how many kids you have, it could be worth up to $728.
That's right.
That's a pretty significant chunk of change.
It is.
So we've got this stimulus money, we've got these unclaimed tax refunds, we've got the EITC. I mean, this is really starting to feel like we're digging for buried treasure here.
It is, and the IRS data actually breaks down this information by state.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and some of the numbers are pretty eye-opening. Like, if we look at Texas, for example, there are over 102,200 people in Texas who could be eligible for a refund, and the median amount is $810.
$810.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. I mean, that could be a car payment or a month's rent for some people.
Absolutely. And if you look at California, there are over 116,300 residents who could be eligible for a refund, and the median amount there is $600.
Okay, and what about New York?
In New York, over 73,000 people could be missing out on a median refund of $995.
Wow, so we're seeing, hundreds of thousands of people potentially in these states
Potentially.
missing out on hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So this is a big deal, but the deadline is April 15th, 2025. That's coming up.
It's coming up quick.
So for those of us who haven't filed our 2021 taxes yet, where do we even begin?
Well, the good news is the IRS offers a couple different ways to tackle those 2021 filings.
Okay, let's walk through it.
Okay, so the most convenient option is to create an IRS online account.
Okay.
You can see all your tax information there.
What if I'm missing some documents like my W-2s from 2021? I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm not the only one who's misplaced
You're
those.
probably not the only one, but you can actually request copies of those forms from your employer.
Oh, okay, so my employer should still have that.
They should, yeah, it's required.
What about if I'm more of a paper person?
If you're more of a paper person, you can request a transcript by mail through the Get Transcript by Mail page on the IRS website, or you can call them at 800-908-9946.
Okay, and what if I need like a super detailed look at my income for that year?
You can request what's called a wage and income transcript
Yep.
by filing Form 4506T,
4506T, got it.
and that will pull all the data together from all these different forms, your W-2s, 1099s, even IRA contribution information.
Okay, and what if I'm just totally lost?
Don't worry, the IRS actually has these programs called the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, or VIA, and the Tax Counseling for the Elderly, which is TCE. And these are programs staffed by trained volunteers who can help you file your taxes.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
So there are resources out there.
There are resources out there.
But, why should our listeners even bother with all this? What's the
Yeah.
big deal about a few $100s or even $1,000?
Well, that money could really make a difference in someone's life. It could help them achieve a financial goal.
Pay off some debt?
Yeah, pay off some debt, just give them some breathing room in their budget. And, on a broader level, we're talking about over $1 billion potentially going back into the economy.
So it's not just about individuals, it's about the bigger picture as well.
Exactly. It's about boosting consumer spending, supporting businesses, creating jobs. It's all connected.
It's like a ripple effect.
Yeah, it's a ripple effect.
I hadn't really considered that before.
Yeah.
It's interesting how, our personal finances are connected to the bigger picture.
Yeah, and, this whole situation really highlights how important financial literacy and awareness are. A lot of people are missing out on these funds simply because they just don't know where to look or how to navigate the system.
It's true. Having access to information and knowing how to utilize those resources can make a big difference in our financial lives.
It can, and we're doing this deep dive to shed some light on this hidden opportunity and encourage our listeners to take action.
I think that's a great goal, and I'm really glad we're doing this episode today because it's so important to be aware of these things.
It is. And what's really interesting to me is this whole conversation has got me thinking.
So what
What if this isn't a one-time thing? What if there are unclaimed funds from other tax years just waiting to be discovered?
Okay, now you've got me thinking.
Yeah,
What other opportunities might be out there?
exactly.
This has been a really insightful conversation so far.
It has.
We've uncovered a lot of valuable information, but we're not done yet. Stay tuned because we're going to delve even deeper into this fascinating topic. Okay, so we're talking about all this money just sitting out there. But it also makes me a little nervous. Anytime we're talking about money, especially when it seems a little too good to be true, it feels like there's got to be some potential for scams.
You're right to be cautious because, unfortunately, scammers are always looking for opportunities to take advantage of people. And a situation like this with unclaimed funds is definitely prime territory for them.
Okay, so what are some red flags? What should our listeners be looking out for?
The biggest thing to remember is that the IRS will never contact you out of the blue by phone, email, text message, or social media asking for your personal or financial information.
So like if someone calls and says, hey, we found an unclaimed stimulus check for you, just give us your social security number and your bank account info, and we'll get you that money.
That's a huge red flag. That's a scam.
Okay, so don't give out any information unless you initiate the contact yourself.
Exactly. Always go directly to the IRS website or call their official number to verify any communication you receive. Don't trust unsolicited contacts.
Okay, good advice. What else should we keep in mind?
Being organized is key. Before you even contact the IRS, gather all your important documents, your social security number, income information tax forms, anything that might be relevant. Having everything in order will streamline the process and help avoid unnecessary delays.
So be prepared. That's always good advice. And what if you hit a roadblock or just feel totally lost in the process?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. We mentioned those free IRS programs earlier, VIA and TCE. They're amazing resources, especially if you're not comfortable with the whole tax filing thing or if you have a more complex financial situation.
It's good to know there's support out there.
Absolutely. Filing your taxes can seem daunting, but it doesn't have to be a stressful experience. With the right resources and a little patience. It's definitely doable, and the potential rewards are absolutely worth the effort.
So to recap, we've got this potential for unclaimed stimulus money and tax refunds. The deadline is April 15, 2025. And we've talked about who's eligible, how to check, and how to avoid getting scammed along the way. But you mentioned earlier that there's more to this story than just individual benefits.
Right. We focus a lot on what's in it for me, but the impact of all this unclaimed money goes way beyond personal finances.
Okay, so zoom out for us. What are we talking about here? What are the bigger implications?
Okay, so imagine over $1 billion suddenly gets injected back into the economy.
$1 billion? Wow, I'm imagining a lot of happy people going shopping.
Right.
But it's probably more complicated than that, right?
It is, but you're on the right track. When people have more disposable income, they tend to spend more on goods and services, which supports businesses, and that can lead to more hiring.
So those new employees then have more money to spend, and it just keeps going.
Exactly. It creates this positive chain reaction that ripples throughout the economy, and on top of that, increased economic activity generates more tax revenue, which can then be used to fund public services and improve infrastructure.
It's like this amazing web of interconnectedness.
Hmm.
I love how, claiming this money isn't just about lining your own pockets. It's about contributing to a more vibrant and prosperous society.
It's about realizing that our personal finances are intertwined with the bigger picture and that we can all play a part in creating a stronger economy.
You know what really strikes me about this whole situation is that it highlights the importance of financial literacy and awareness. It seems like many people are missing out on these funds simply because they don't know how to navigate the system, or they're not even aware that these opportunities exist.
That's a really crucial point. Access to information and knowing how to utilize resources is essential for making informed financial decisions and achieving financial well-being.
So this deep dive is not just about uncovering these hidden opportunities, but also about empowering our listeners to take control of their finances and make smart choices.
Absolutely. We want to inspire people to be proactive about their money and to realize that even small steps can have a big impact.
And you know what? This whole conversation's got me thinking.
Oh, yeah.
What if this isn't just a one-time thing? What if there are unclaimed funds from other tax years just waiting to be discovered?
That's a great question, and it's something we should definitely explore further. What other financial opportunities might we be overlooking? What other hidden treasures are out there just waiting to be found?
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. This is starting to feel like the beginning of a whole new adventure.
Right, and it really highlights the importance of being curious and staying informed when it comes to our finances. There's always more to learn and discover.
So don't just sit back and wait for opportunities to fall into your lap. Go out there and actively seek them out.
Exactly. Take charge of your financial well-being and make sure you're not leaving any money on the table.
And speaking of taking action, let's talk about the specific steps our listeners can take right now to see if they have any unclaimed funds waiting for them.
The message is simple. Don't leave money on the table. Even if you think you're not eligible for a stimulus check or refund, it's always worth checking.
So where should they start their treasure hunt?
The IRS website is your one-stop shop. It has tons of resources to help you navigate this whole process. You can check your eligibility file, your 2021 return, and even explore potential refunds from previous years. Remember those?
It's like a digital treasure map. And of course, if you're feeling overwhelmed or need a little extra guidance, don't hesitate to reach out to those free IRS assistance programs we talked about earlier, or consult with a qualified tax professional.
There's no shame in asking for help. In fact, that's often the smartest thing you can do, especially when it comes to something as important as your finances.
Well, there you have it. We've uncovered some potentially life-changing financial opportunities today. But the real adventure begins when you take action and start digging into those resources.
Remember, this isn't just about a few extra dollars. It's about taking charge of your financial well-being, contributing to a stronger economy, and embracing the power of knowledge. So go forth, intrepid explorers, and claim what's rightfully yours.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey. We started by looking for some forgotten cash and ended up uncovering a whole network of possibilities. I'm feeling inspired to go check my own records right now.
That's the spirit. And as you embark on your own treasure hunt, here's one final thought to ponder.
Oh, I love a good cliffhanger. What's the final nugget of wisdom you want to leave our listeners with today?
If there's unclaimed money from previous tax years, what other financial opportunities might we be overlooking? What other hidden treasures are out there just waiting to be discovered if we take the time to look?
That's a fantastic question to end on, and I think this deep dive has shown us that there's always more to learn, more to explore, and more potential to unlock when it comes to our finances.
Absolutely. So keep digging, keep learning, and keep thriving.
And until next time, happy treasure hunting. It really is like we've opened this door and we're looking into this whole new world of
The
possibilities.
whole new world of financial possibilities. Yeah, and we've given our listeners a treasure map.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's up to them to go and seek it out and explore.
Who knows what other hidden gems are out there?
Maybe that's our next deep dive.
Maybe so. But for now, let's bring it back to this deep dive and what we've learned so far. We've talked about everything from unclaimed stimulus checks and forgotten tax refunds to even the potential for unclaimed money from previous years.
I know it's been a lot, but it's good information to have.
Yeah.
I feel like my eyes have been opened to so many opportunities that I never even knew existed before.
That's what we like to hear.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway that you want our listeners to walk away with?
You know, if there's one thing I hope they remember, it's that it pays to be proactive.
Proactive, okay?
Yeah, so whether it's checking for unclaimed funds, educating yourself about financial resources, or just staying organized with your records, taking those small steps can make a huge difference in your financial journey.
I agree. It's easy to get overwhelmed by all this stuff, but even those small, consistent actions can lead to big results over time.
Yeah, that's the key. It's not about becoming a financial expert overnight. It's about, being curious, being willing to learn, and being proactive.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
I agree. It's been a fantastic conversation.
So, to all our listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of unclaimed treasures. Remember, knowledge is power. So go out there, explore those resources, and claim what's rightfully yours.
And until next time, happy